For some people, all graffiti is vandalism. For some people, graffiti is art. And some people just think tags are vandalism. I guess it just depends on how the person looks at it. My name is Zach. I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. Yeah, I've been there my whole life. Only recently I've moved into the south side of Melbourne, into Albert Park, and been staying in a temple, in a Hare Krishna temple here, living as a monk for 2 years. A lot of the time I spent growing up making artwork and music. I got into making art through my grandma. She's a lifelong artist, life drawer, and through my dad as well. He always encouraged me and my sister to draw. So that was my introduction to making art. I remember the first painting that I ever made was like this Pokemon that I made up in my mind. It was kind of like a graffiti style in one sense, because it was like a very cartoon kind of abstract thing. And I did all these like skull heads around, like this Pokemon was like destroying all these people. I had like a very raw approach as well, like I was doing finger painting and like kind of like a graffiti sort of style. Just like anything I felt inspired, just like smashing it together, you know. Graffiti has impacted my art by the kind of spontaneous approach to art that it has, you know, like just on the spot, whipping something up on the wall. Or I really liked that like immediate sort of expression. I don't like to think about art too much when I'm making. It's a very intuitive experience for me. So that sort of spontaneous attitude to making art, that's what influenced me.
I think the tricky thing with graffiti, which will always inherently be there, is that it's part art, part vandalism in a sense. I mean, it started as vandalism. We can't escape that, I find. You know, I think the difference is that it can still be beautiful and artistic. I don't regard tagging as art, for instance. I think that's more of a cultural thing that certain groups engage in to sort of have a bit of a thrill in a sense. My name is Zach Hart and I work for a local gallery called Climb Art in Richmond, which is basically a gallery that views the climate emergency through the lens of art. The difference between someone tagging just a word on the side of the train versus some of these amazing murals that we see in Melbourne, I think it's a no-brainer which one is art and which one is vandalism. And I think it's a shame that the people have sort of married the two as just a broad blanket vandal activity.
Hi, my name's Gemma Howard. I'm studying literature at Oxford and I'm doing my dissertation on concrete poetry. I think an interesting way that concrete poetry relates to graffiti is through the similar kind of like manipulation of the visual and the verbal, where tagging, which is often seen as kind of vandalism, actually has some interesting resonances with concrete poetry's aim of often sort of breaking down language to its like material components and making it almost indecipherable.
There's a lot of graffiti that I'm not so into because it's coming from a lower sort of consciousness place. It's just kind of throwing your name on the wall and just like it's a bit of an ego trip sort of thing, like this guy scratched out my name, I'm gonna bash this guy up or something like that, you know. So I'm not into that side of it. I like art that will help raise people's consciousness and raise, you know, the mentality of the way people are looking at themselves in the world. So I respect when people use art for that purpose, because it's a powerful medium, you know, shouldn't be abused.
I think what's interesting about my perception of tagging is that where often people do view tagging as like kind of pure vandalism, I do see the interesting experimental aspect to it, which ties in with my kind of interesting concrete poetry and the way that it does kind of chart a new territory in how to, I guess, convey names, sense of place, territory, all those ideas in quite like a kind of compact way through like tagging that's often indecipherable to like other people. Like unless you're within the scene of graffiti, you don't really understand what the tagging is.
As my awareness of the world and myself progressed, it reflected into the art because it's like a reflection of your inner world turning out. So when I was like getting more into spirituality, into ancient knowledge, it really broadened my consciousness, and I felt like I was more sensitive to understanding